My daughter said, "Mom, make me an authorized person at the bank just in case." 2 months later, when I came to the bank, the teller said, "Your account is closed." What? Your daughter withdrew all the money using the power of attorney 2 days ago. Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My life had always been simple, predictable, comfortable. At 72, I lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in suburban Ohio, the same house where I'd raised my daughter Jennifer. My husband passed 11 years ago, leaving me with his pension, my Social Security, and a savings account I'd built carefully over decades. Nothing extravagant, just enough to feel secure, to know I wouldn't be a burden to anyone. I gardened, volunteered at the library on Tuesdays, played bridge with Margaret and Susan every Thursday evening. I thought I had everything figured out. Jennifer had always been my pride. Successful, independent, working as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. She lived an hour away with her husband, Derek, and though we didn't see each other weekly, we talked on the phone, exchanged texts, maintained what I believed was a close, loving relationship. She was my only child, my everything. It started last spring, so innocuously I almost missed it. Jennifer began visiting more frequently, once a week, sometimes twice. At first I was delighted. What mother wouldn't be? We'd have coffee in my kitchen. She'd ask about my health, my finances, whether I was managing everything okay on my own. "Mom, you're getting older," she'd say, concern creasing her forehead. "What if something happens and I can't access your accounts to help you? What if there's an emergency?" The concern seemed genuine, loving even. But there was something else beneath it, an urgency I couldn't quite place. She brought it up again and again, always circling back to the same suggestion. "You should add me as an authorized person on your bank account. Just as a precaution, just in case." I resisted at first. Not because I didn't trust her. How could I not trust my own daughter? But because I valued my independence. I'd managed my own finances for over 50 years. Why would I need help now? But Jennifer was persistent, gently persistent. She'd mention horror stories she'd heard at work. Elderly parents who'd had strokes, whose accounts were frozen for months while families scrambled for legal access. "It's just smart planning, Mom," she'd insist. "Practical. It doesn't mean anything will happen. It's just in case." Eventually, I relented. It seemed harmless enough, didn't it? A precautionary measure, an act of love and trust between mother and daughter. We went to the bank together on a Tuesday afternoon in late April. Jennifer smiled warmly at the banker, held my elbow as we walked to the desk, filled out most of the paperwork herself. "See, Mom? Easy. Now you don't have to worry about anything." I didn't worry. That was my first mistake. The weeks that followed were unremarkable. Jennifer's visits became less frequent. She was busy with work, she said, a new project demanding overtime. I didn't think much of it. Life returned to its comfortable rhythm: garden, library, bridge with the ladies. Then came that Monday morning in late June. I needed to withdraw cash for a weekend trip to visit my cousin in Pennsylvania. I drove to the bank, walked up to the counter, handed my withdrawal slip to the young teller, a girl named Brittany who always remembered my name. She typed something into her computer, frowned, typed again. Then she looked up at me with an expression I'll never forget: confusion mixed with pity. "Mrs. Patterson," she said carefully, "your account shows as closed." The words didn't register at first. Closed? There must be some mistake. She shook her head slowly. "According to our records, the account was closed 2 days ago. Saturday morning. All funds were withdrawn. My hands went cold. That's impossible. I haven't. It wasn't you, ma'am. Brittany glanced at her screen again. It was Jennifer Patterson, your authorized representative. She came in Saturday, withdrew the full balance, $47,000, and closed the account. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. $47,000. Everything. My emergency fund, my safety net, the money I'd scrimped and saved from every paycheck, every birthday gift, every careful budget decision over 30 years. Gone. There must be some mistake, I whispered again, but even as I said it, I knew there wasn't. I drove home in a daze, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. How did I even make it back? I don't remember the route, the stoplights, the turns into my driveway. I only remember sitting in my parked car, staring at my house, my safe, familiar house, and feeling like a stranger in my own life. $47,000. I kept repeating the number in my mind, trying to make sense of it. That money represented decades of sacrifice. The vacations I didn't take. The new car I didn't buy. The restaurant meals I skipped in favor of leftovers. Every dollar had been placed there with purpose, security, independence, dignity in my old age. And Jennifer, my daughter, my only child, the person I trusted most in this world, had taken it all. But why? I stumbled into my kitchen and sat at the table, the same table where we'd had coffee just weeks ago, where she'd smiled and talked about work and asked how I was sleeping. Had she been planning it even then? Had every concerned question, every loving gesture been a performance? The betrayal cut deeper than the money. This wasn't a stranger who'd scammed me, some faceless criminal I could report and move on from. This was Jennifer, the baby I'd nursed, the toddler whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, the teenager whose heartbreaks I'd soothed, the woman I'd celebrated at her college graduation, her wedding, every milestone of her life. How could she do this to me? I tried calling her cell phone. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Jennifer, it's Mom. I need you to call me immediately. Please. My voice cracked on that last word. An hour passed. No response. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. By evening, panic had given way to something colder, harder. I looked around my house, at the leaking faucet I'd been meaning to fix, the property tax bill sitting on the counter, the mortgage payment due in 2 weeks. I'd been managing, but just barely. My pension covered basic expenses with little margin for error. That savings account had been my cushion, my backup plan, my peace of mind. Without it, I was vulnerable. One medical emergency, one major repair, one unexpected expense, and I'd be in serious trouble. At 72, I had no earning potential, no way to rebuild what had been stolen. The word felt right. Stolen. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? Theft. The fact that I'd signed papers authorizing Jennifer's access didn't change the fundamental truth. She'd taken money that wasn't hers, money she had no right to, money I'd never intended for her to touch. I needed to think clearly. I made myself a cup of tea, sat back down at the kitchen table and forced my mind to focus. What were my options? Option 1. Do nothing. Accept the loss. Try to survive on my pension alone. Hope Jennifer eventually felt guilty enough to return the money. But even as I considered it, I knew it was foolish. If she'd felt capable of doing this in the first place, why would she develop a conscience later? And more importantly, why should I make this easy for her? Option 2. Confront her directly, demand the money back, appeal to her sense of decency and family loyalty. But would that work? She'd already ignored my calls. She'd already proven herself capable of profound deception. What made me think she'd suddenly become reasonable? Option 3. Take action. Real action. Legal action. The thought frightened me. I'd never been a confrontational person, never been involved in anything remotely legal beyond signing mortgage papers and writing a will. The idea of lawyers, police reports, potential courtrooms made my stomach clench. Jennifer was my daughter. Could I really do that to her? But then I thought about the alternative. Letting her get away with it, allowing myself to become a victim, surrendering my security without a fight. What kind of message would that send? What kind of precedent would that set? Number. No, I couldn't do that. I walked to my home office, a converted spare bedroom where I kept my important papers, and began pulling files. Bank statements from the past year, the authorization form I'd signed at the bank, my will, my pension documents. I spread everything on the desk and started taking notes, documenting everything I could remember, dates, conversations, the timeline of Jennifer's increasing visits, and pressure. My hand was steadier now. The fear was still there, coiled tight in my chest. But something else had joined it. Determination. By midnight, I had the beginnings of a plan. First thing tomorrow, I would go back to the bank and request copies of all transaction records. I needed documentation, proof of exactly what had been taken and when. Then I would consult a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers personally, but Margaret's son was an attorney in Cleveland. She'd give me his number, and I would find out exactly what my legal options were. Jennifer had made a choice. She'd chosen to betray me, to steal from me, to treat me not as her mother, but as an easy mark. Now I would make my choice. I would fight back. Tuesday morning, I was at the bank when it opened. Brittany, the young teller, looked surprised to see me back so soon. I asked to speak with a manager, and within minutes I was sitting across from Mr. Harrison, a balding man in his 50s who'd handled my account for years. Mrs. Patterson, he said gently, clearly uncomfortable. Brittany mentioned what happened. I'm very sorry, but the withdrawal was completely legitimate. Your daughter had full authorization. I understand that, I interrupted, my voice firmer than I felt. I'm not disputing the legality of her access. I need copies of all transaction records for the past 6 months. Every withdrawal, every deposit, everything. He blinked, surprised by my directness. Of course. May I ask why you need personal reasons? I said. How soon can you have them ready? Within an hour, I walked out of the bank with a thick envelope of statements. I sat in my car and reviewed them carefully, and that's when I saw it. The pattern I hadn't noticed before. The $47,000 hadn't disappeared all at once. Over the past 8 weeks, there had been smaller withdrawals. 2,000 here, 3,000 there, 1,500, 4,000. Small enough not to trigger alerts, spread out enough to seem potentially legitimate. Jennifer had been siphoning money gradually, testing the waters, making sure no one would notice or intervene. And then, on that Saturday morning, she'd cleaned out what remained and closed the account entirely. This wasn't an impulsive act. This was calculated, planned, methodical. The realization made my hands shake, not with fear this time, but with anger. I drove straight to Margaret's house. She answered the door in her gardening gloves, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. Helen, what's wrong? I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shock to outrage. When I finished, she immediately reached for her phone. I'm calling David right now. David Chen, Margaret's son, practiced family law in Cleveland. He agreed to see me that very afternoon, squeezing me between appointments as a favor to his mother. His office was sleek and professional, and he was nothing like the intimidating lawyer I'd imagined. Instead, he was patient, thorough, and kind. I showed him the bank statements, explained the timeline, recounted Jennifer's pressure to be added to the account. He took detailed notes, asked careful questions, and finally sat back in his chair with a sigh. Mrs. Patterson, I'll be direct with you. Legally, this is complicated. Your daughter had authorized access to the account. You gave her that access voluntarily, in writing. That makes it very difficult to pursue criminal theft charges. My heart sank. So, I have no recourse? I didn't say that. He leaned forward. There's a difference between legal access and rightful ownership. The money was yours. She had permission to access it in case of emergency or to help manage your affairs, not to take it for her own use. We can pursue civil action, a lawsuit to recover the funds based on breach of fiduciary duty and elder financial exploitation. Elder financial exploitation. The phrase stung, but it was accurate. What would that involve? I asked. First, we'd send a formal demand letter, a legal notice requiring her to return the money within a specified time frame. If she refuses or doesn't respond, we file a lawsuit. Discovery process, potentially depositions, possibly a trial if it doesn't settle. I won't lie to you, it takes time and money. But given the amount involved and the clear documentation you have a strong case. How much time? How much money? He quoted me attorney fees that made me wince, but I'd expected as much. If we win, we can petition for her to cover legal costs as part of the judgment. And there's another option you should consider. What's that? Filing a report with Adult Protective Services. Financial exploitation of elderly family members is taken very seriously in Ohio. They can investigate, and if they find evidence of abuse, they can pursue their own actions, including criminal charges. Criminal charges. Against my daughter. The thought made me feel sick, but I forced myself to consider it rationally. What she'd done was criminal, wasn't it? Just because she was family didn't make it less wrong. Let me think about that part, I said. But yes, please send the demand letter. We spent another 30 minutes going over details. I signed a retainer agreement, wrote a check I could barely afford, and walked out of his office with a strange mixture of dread and relief. I was taking action. I was fighting back. That evening, my phone rang. Jennifer. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Finally, I picked up. Mom? Her voice was bright, casual, as if nothing had happened. Sorry I missed your calls yesterday. Work has been crazy. How are you? The audacity was breathtaking. I kept my voice level. Jennifer, I went to the bank on Monday. A pause. Oh? The teller told me my account was closed, that you withdrew all the money. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted, defensive but still attempting innocence. Mom, I was going to talk to you about that. I've been worried about you keeping so much cash in a regular savings account. The interest rate is terrible. I moved the money into a high-yield investment account in my name temporarily, just until we can set up something better for you. Don't lie to me. The words came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't regret them. You took $47,000 without asking me, without telling me, and you closed my account. That money is mine, Jennifer. I want it back. Mom, you're overreacting. I'm managing it for you. I didn't ask you to manage anything. I want the money returned to my account by the end of this week. Her voice turned cold. Or what? Or I'll take legal action to recover it. Silence. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. You're going to sue me? Your own daughter? Mom, that's ridiculous. You're clearly confused. I'm not confused. I've already spoken with an attorney. You'll be receiving a demand letter this week. I suggest you take it seriously. I hung up before she could respond. my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. The gauntlet had been thrown. David's demand letter arrived at Jennifer's house 3 days later. I know because she called me within hours of receiving it, and this time there was no pretense of casual concern. "What the hell is this?" she hissed into the phone. No greeting, no mom, just raw anger. "You actually hired a lawyer? You're actually threatening to sue me?" I was in my garden, kneeling by the tomato plants, dirt under my fingernails. Something about working with soil steadied my nerves. "Jennifer, the letter is clear. Return the money, and there's no lawsuit." "This is insane. I'm your daughter. I'm trying to help you, and you're treating me like a criminal." "You took $47,000 without my permission. What would you call that?" "I call it financial planning. I call it making sure you're taken care of." Her voice was escalating, becoming shrill. "You don't understand investments, Mom. You don't understand modern banking. I was protecting your assets." "Then show me the account. Show me these investments you claim to have made in my name." Silence. "Jennifer, show me the account. It's complicated. There are penalties for early withdrawal." "I don't care about penalties. If you truly invested my money, show me the proof. Account statements, investment documents, anything." "I don't have to prove anything to you." Now she was fully shouting. "You gave me access. You signed the papers. That money is as much mine as yours." And there it was, the truth, finally spoken aloud. She didn't view this as helping me or protecting me. She viewed my life savings as hers to take. "You have until Friday," I said quietly. "Return the money by Friday, or the lawsuit moves forward." "You're making a huge mistake, Mom. Huge. Do you know what this will do to our family? To our relationship?" "You destroyed our relationship the moment you stole from me." "I didn't steal anything!" She was screaming now. "And if you go through with this, I swear to God, you'll regret it. I'll make sure everyone knows what you're doing. I'll tell the whole family you've gone senile, that you're not competent to manage your own affairs. I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time with adrenaline rather than fear. Friday came and went. No money was returned. No apology. No communication at all. On Monday, David filed the lawsuit. The following Wednesday, Jennifer showed up at my house. I was washing dishes after lunch when I heard her car in the driveway. Saw her marching up my front walk with her husband, Derek, trailing behind her. I dried my hands and opened the door before she could knock. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into my living room. Derek at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. He gave me an apologetic shrug. He'd always been the gentler one in their marriage, but said nothing. Jennifer spun to face me, arms crossed. "This lawsuit is ridiculous, and you know it. You're wasting money on lawyers. You're humiliating our family. And for what? Because you're angry I tried to help you." "You didn't try to help me. You stole from me." "I already told you. Show me the investment accounts, Jennifer. Right now. Pull them up on your phone." Her jaw tightened. "I don't have to, because they don't exist, do they? You didn't invest my money. You spent it." Derek's head whipped toward his wife. "Jen?" She ignored him. Her eyes locked on mine. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes, I used some of the money. We needed it. Derek's company cut his salary. We're behind on the mortgage. Kaylee's college tuition is due. We're drowning in debt, and you were just sitting on all that cash doing nothing with it. It was my cash, my security. You're 72 years old? How much security do you need? You're going to die in a few years anyway." The words hung in the air, obscene in their cruelty. Even Derek flinched. Jennifer must have realized what she'd said because her face paled slightly, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she doubled down. "I'm your only family, Mom. Your only child. Eventually, that money would have been mine anyway. I just moved up the timeline. By stealing it. Stop calling it stealing! She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something more menacing. You want to play hardball? Fine. I'll tell the court you have dementia. I'll bring in doctors' testimony, proof that you're not mentally competent. I'll get a conservatorship, take control of all your assets, and you won't be able to do anything about it. My blood ran cold. Could she actually do that? Could she lie convincingly enough to have me declared incompetent? But then I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the desperation in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly. The sweat on her upper lip despite the cool temperature in the room. She was scared. Cornered. Bluffing. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Mom? Get out! Derek touched her arm. Jen, come on, let's go. She shook him off, but must have seen something in my expression that told her I wouldn't budge. This isn't over, she spat. You're going to regret this. Both of you will. She stormed out, Derek following with an apologetic glance back at me. I watched through the window as they argued beside their car. I couldn't hear the words, but Jennifer's wild gestures and Derek's defensive posture told the story. Finally, they got in and drove away. I locked the front door, walked to my bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed. My whole body was shaking now. The confrontation had drained something essential from me, left me feeling hollow and ancient. For the next 3 days, I barely left the house. I didn't garden, didn't answer the phone, didn't see anyone. Margaret came by twice, but I pretended not to be home. I needed silence, needed space to process what had happened. My daughter had threatened me, had essentially told me I'd be dead soon so my money didn't matter, had promised to destroy my credibility, my reputation, my autonomy if I didn't surrender. What kind of person had she become? Or had she always been this way, and I'd simply refused to see it? On the 4th day, I woke up feeling different. The shock had worn off. The fear had crystallized into something harder, colder. Jennifer had shown me exactly who she was, and I believed her now. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about refusing to be a victim, about reclaiming my dignity. I got dressed, made coffee, and called David. I want to move forward, I told him, with everything, the lawsuit, the Adult Protective Services report, all of it. Are you sure? He asked gently. Completely sure. 2 weeks into the legal process, Jennifer changed tactics. The threatening calls stopped. The angry voicemails ceased. Instead, I received a text message. Mom, can we talk? Just the two of us? Please? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. About what? About finding a solution that works for both of us. No lawyers, no drama, just mother and daughter. Every instinct screamed trap, but curiosity won out. Where? That cafe on Maple Street, the one we used to go to. Tomorrow at 2? The nostalgia play wasn't subtle. Rosie's Cafe had been our special place when Jennifer was younger, where we'd celebrated her high school graduation, where I'd taken her for heart-to-hearts during difficult times. She was trying to manipulate me with memories, but I agreed anyway. Fine. 2 p.m. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a table by the window where I could see her approach. When Jennifer walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, clothes that suggested she'd dressed in a hurry. She'd lost weight. Good, a small, vicious part of me thought. Then I felt guilty for thinking it. She slid into the seat across from me, attempted a smile. Thanks for meeting me, Mom. I said nothing, just waited. She ordered coffee she didn't drink, fidgeted with the spoon, and finally looked at me directly. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about what I did, and you're right. I should have asked permission. I should have been more transparent. Still, I waited. Derek and I have been talking, and we think we can work out a compromise. We can pay you back, not all at once, but in installments. 5,000 now, then 1,000 a month until it's all returned. I did the math quickly. At that rate, it would take over 3 years to get my money back, and that was assuming they actually made the payments consistently, which seemed unlikely given their financial situation. Where would the initial 5,000 come from? I asked. Derek's parents offered to help. They don't want this family torn apart over money. Ah, so Derek's parents knew. Jennifer was expanding the circle of people who viewed me as the villain in this story, the unreasonable old woman suing her own daughter over money that would eventually be hers anyway. And the monthly payments? I pressed. We'd manage. Cut back on things, adjust our budget. She reached across the table, tried to take my hand. I pulled it back. She flinched, but continued. Mom, I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But I'm your daughter. Your only child. Doesn't that count for something? Doesn't our whole relationship matter more than money? There it was. The guilt trip, delivered with just the right mixture of remorse and wounded innocence. 3 months ago, it might have worked. 3 months ago, I might have folded, accepted the crumbs she was offering, prioritized family peace over my own interests. But I'd spent the past weeks examining my entire relationship with Jennifer through a new lens, and I'd seen things I'd previously ignored. The way she'd always come to me when she needed something, co-signing her car loan, babysitting at the last minute, lending money for emergencies that never quite got repaid. The way our conversations always seemed to center on her problems, her needs, her life, while my concerns were dismissed as minor or unimportant. I'd been useful to her. That's what I'd been. A resource to be tapped, a problem solver, a convenient solution. Not a person with my own needs, my own dignity, my own right to security and respect. Our relationship does matter, I said finally. That's exactly why what you did is so unforgivable. You didn't just steal money from me, Jennifer. You exploited my trust, manipulated my love for you, and when caught, you threatened to have me declared incompetent. You told me I'd be dead soon anyway, so the money didn't matter. She had the decency to look ashamed. I didn't mean that. I was angry. I said things I shouldn't have. But you did say them, and you meant them in that moment. You showed me exactly what you think of me. So what then? You're just going to destroy our family? Take me to court? Drag us through the legal system? Make sure everyone knows our private business? You destroyed our family when you committed fraud against me, I said calmly. You made the choice. You're just angry that there are consequences. 5,000 now, Mom, plus monthly payments. That's a fair offer. It's not enough. Her expression hardened. It's all we can do. No, I said. What you can do is return the full amount immediately. Liquidate whatever you bought with my money. The cars, the vacations, the luxury items, whatever you spent it on. Take a loan if you have to, but return my money in full within 30 days. That's impossible. Then we proceed with the lawsuit. I stood, dropping a $5 bill on the table for my untouched coffee. And just so you know, I've also filed a report with Adult Protective Services. They'll be investigating the financial exploitation claim. Her face went white. You did what? Exactly what you forced me to do. Take responsibility for your choices, Jennifer, or don't. But either way, I'm done being your victim. I walked out of the cafe without looking back. The next day, Derek called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Helen, Mrs. Patterson, it's Derek. Please don't hang up. His voice was tight, stressed. I waited. Jennifer didn't want me to call, but I need you to know something I didn't know about the money, about any of it. She told me you'd given her the money as an early inheritance, that you'd wanted to help with our debt. I only found out the truth during that argument at your house. Okay, I said neutrally. I told her she needs to make this right. I told her she needs to return the money, that what she did was wrong. But she's not thinking clearly. She's terrified of the lawsuit, of the investigation, of what this means for her reputation. She works in sales. If word gets out that she's being investigated for elder abuse, she could lose her job. That's not my problem, Derek. I know. I'm not asking you to drop the case. I'm just asking, is there any way to resolve this that doesn't destroy her completely? It was the first time anyone from their side had acknowledged the reality of what Jennifer had done without making excuses. The first time anyone had validated my position. She returns the full amount within 30 days, I said. Every penny, plus my attorney fees. And she signs a written admission of what she did, not for public disclosure, but for legal documentation. If she does that, I'll withdraw the lawsuit. But the Adult Protective Services investigation will proceed regardless. That's out of my hands now. I'll talk to her, Derek said quietly. I'll talk to my parents too, see if they can help with a loan. Thank you for being reasonable. I'm not being reasonable, Derek. I'm being merciful. There's a difference. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and felt, what? Not victorious, not happy, just tired. Margaret came over that evening with a casserole and a bottle of wine. You look like hell, she said bluntly. I feel like it. We ate dinner mostly in silence, then moved to the living room with our wine glasses. Margaret had been my friend for 30 years. She'd known Jennifer since she was a baby, had been there for birthday parties and graduations and everything in between. How are you really doing? She asked. And somehow, that simple question broke something open in me. I started crying. Deep, wrenching sobs I'd been holding back for weeks. Margaret just held me, let me cry it out. Didn't offer platitudes or false comfort. When I finally calmed down, she handed me tissues and refilled my wine. I keep thinking I failed her, I whispered. That I raised her wrong, that this is somehow my fault. Stop that, Margaret said firmly. You didn't make her steal from you. You didn't make her lie and manipulate and threaten. She made those choices. She's a grown woman, and she's responsible for her own actions. But she's my daughter. And you're her mother, which means she owed you respect, love, and honesty. She gave you none of those things. That's on her, not you. We talked until past midnight. About Jennifer, about betrayal, about the courage it took to stand up for myself. When Margaret finally left, I felt lighter somehow, less alone. I had support. I had friends who believed me, who saw the situation clearly, who didn't expect me to sacrifice myself for the sake of false peace. That mattered more than I'd realized. They came on a Sunday afternoon, without calling first. I was reading on the back porch when I heard the doorbell. Then Jennifer's voice calling through the mail slot. Mom, we know you're home. Please, we just want to talk. I considered ignoring them, but curiosity, and maybe some lingering maternal instinct, made me open the door. Jennifer stood on my porch with Derek and, to my surprise, Derek's parents, Robert and Linda Chen, a well-dressed couple in their mid-70s whom I'd met perhaps a dozen times over the years at holidays and family gatherings. They'd always been cordial, but distant, clearly viewing me as a rung or two below their social status. We've come to make peace, Linda announced, sweeping past me into my living room as if she owned the place. Robert followed with an apologetic nod, while Jennifer and Derek brought up the rear. I stood in my own doorway, feeling invaded. I wasn't aware we had an appointment. This is too important for appointments, Linda said, settling herself on my sofa. Family matters require immediate attention. Robert, dear, tell her. Robert Chen cleared his throat uncomfortably. He'd always struck me as a decent man, if somewhat dominated by his wife. Helen, we've heard about the situation between you and Jennifer. We want to help resolve it. There's nothing to resolve, I said, still standing. Jennifer stole $47,000 from me. She can return it, or we proceed with a lawsuit. It's very simple. Linda made a dismissive sound. See, this is exactly the problem. You're being so rigid, so unforgiving. Jennifer made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to return a phone call. Taking $47,000 is theft. She was trying to help you, Linda's voice rose. She was trying to make sure your money was properly invested, that you'd be taken care of. And instead of being grateful, you've turned this into some ridiculous legal drama. The gaslighting was impressive in its shamelessness. I looked at Jennifer, who had the decency to stare at the floor. Did you tell them the truth? I asked her. Did you tell them you took the money without asking? That you spent it on your own debts? That you closed my account without my knowledge or permission? Jennifer's jaw tightened. I told them we had a misunderstanding about a misunderstanding. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Is that what we're calling fraud now? You see? Linda turned to her son. This is what I meant. She's being completely unreasonable. Derek shifted uncomfortably. Mom, that's not... Derek, please. Linda cut him off with a look, then turned back to me. Helen, let's be practical. Jennifer and Derek are drowning in debt. Derek's salary was cut, they have a mortgage, a child in college. They needed help, and you had money sitting in an account doing nothing. Yes, perhaps Jennifer should have asked first, but given your age and your stubbornness, can you really blame her for taking initiative? The manipulation was so blatant it took my breath away. She was actually arguing that Jennifer was justified in stealing from me because I was old and stubborn. My age is irrelevant, I said coldly, and my money is mine to do with as I choose. But it's going to be Jennifer's eventually anyway, Linda pressed. You have no other children, no other family. When you die, which, let's be honest, could be quite soon at your age, that money goes to her. So what's the harm in her having access to it now when she actually needs it? Robert looked pained. Linda, maybe we should... I'm being honest, Robert. Someone has to be. She turned back to me. We've come here today to make you an offer. A very generous offer. We'll give you $10,000. Right now, a check, if you drop the lawsuit and the investigation. $10,000. Less than a quarter of what had been stolen. You're offering me a fraction of my own money back? I asked in disbelief. We're offering you peace, Linda corrected. We're offering you the chance to preserve your relationship with your daughter, your granddaughter, your only family. $10,000 is a fair compromise, considering Jennifer had authorized access and was acting in your best interests. I looked at each of them in turn. Linda, imperious and certain she could buy my silence. Robert, uncomfortable but unwilling to contradict his wife. Derek, ashamed but silent. And Jennifer, who finally met my eyes with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it hope? Desperation? Contempt? Get out, I said quietly. Linda blinked. Excuse me? Get out of my house, all of you, now. Don't be ridiculous. I said get out. My voice rose, surprising even myself. How dare you come into my home and try to bribe me with my own money? How dare you suggest I should be grateful for being stolen from? How dare you act as if I'm the problem here? Jennifer stood abruptly. See? This is what I've been dealing with. She's impossible to reason with. Because I won't let you rob me blind? I turned on her. Because I won't accept pennies on the dollar for what you stole? Because I have the audacity to expect my own daughter to treat me with basic human decency? I treated you with plenty of decency for 72 years, Jennifer shot back. her mask finally slipping completely. I visited you. I called you. I pretended to care about your boring stories and your pathetic little life. And what did I get? Nothing. You're sitting on nearly $50,000 while your own daughter and granddaughter are struggling, and you wouldn't even offer to help. You never asked for help. You just took. Because I knew you'd say no. You've always been selfish, always hoarding your money like some kind of dragon. Jennifer, stop. Derek tried to intervene, but she shook him off. No, I'm done pretending. I'm done acting like she's some sweet old lady when she's actually a bitter, miserly woman who cares more about money than her own family. The words should have hurt, but instead, I felt a strange clarity wash over me. This was who she really was. This was what she really thought of me. And finally, she was being honest. You're right about one thing, I said calmly. I do care about money. Because money is security. Money is independence. Money is the difference between being able to take care of myself and being at the mercy of people like you. And everything you just said proves I was right not to trust you with it. Linda stood. Robert, we're leaving. There's no reasoning with someone so selfish. I'm selfish? I laughed. I'm selfish because I won't hand over my life savings to someone who's already proven they'll steal from me? You're selfish, Jennifer hissed, because you're willing to destroy your own family over money, because you're so vindictive, so cruel, that you'd rather see me lose my job, lose my reputation, lose everything, than just let this go. I didn't make you steal from me, Jennifer. You did that all by yourself. Fine. She grabbed her purse. You want war? You've got it. We'll fight you every step of the way. We'll drag this out. We'll make it as expensive as possible. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Go ahead, I said. The truth is on my side. They left in a storm of slammed doors and angry muttering. Through the window, I watched them argue in the driveway. Jennifer screaming, Derek trying to calm her, Linda gesticulating wildly while Robert stood helplessly by. Then they were gone. I locked the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. My hands were shaking, my legs weak. The confrontation had taken everything out of me. But underneath the fear, underneath the exhaustion, there was something else. Pride. I'd stood my ground. I'd refused their bribes and their manipulation. I'd refused to be bullied or guilted into surrendering. For the first time in my life, I'd chosen myself over keeping the peace. And it felt terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The Adult Protective Services investigation moved quickly. Patricia Simmons, the caseworker, reviewed my documentation and interviewed Jennifer. She's not a skilled liar, Patricia told me afterward. Her story changed 3 times in an hour. First, you gave permission. Then it was a misunderstanding. Then you have dementia and don't remember. I don't have dementia. I know. Your doctor confirmed it. Her lies just made her look worse. David called with a settlement offer, $35,000. That's $12,000 short, I said. Tell them no. We go to trial. The trial took place on a gray October morning. Jennifer sat with her attorney while David methodically presented our case. Documentation, timeline, bank records, testimony confirming I'd never been consulted. Then David cross-examined Jennifer. You testified you were worried about your mother's financial management. What specific concerns did you have? Jennifer hesitated. She's elderly. Had she made any poor decisions before you took access? Not that I saw, but in fact, she'd maintained that account for 30 years without issue, correct? Yes. You claim you invested the money. Can you provide documentation? They were temporary. Yes or no? No. Because you spent it on your debts, didn't you? Some was invested. How much? About $5,000. $5,000 out of 47. Where did the rest go? Our mortgage, credit cards, Kaylee's tuition. Your debts, not your mother's benefit. Did you tell her before taking the money? No, but did you close her account without her knowledge? Technically, yes. Did you offer to return the money when she discovered the theft? Jennifer's composure cracked. I offered partial repayment. She refused to compromise. So your defense is she should have accepted partial repayment for stolen money. Objection, her attorney stood. Sustained, the judge said. But his expression told me everything. 2 weeks later, the ruling came. Judgment in my favor for $47,000 plus attorney fees and costs. Total, $53,000. The judge's written opinion was scathing. The defendant's actions constitute clear elder financial exploitation. Her attempts to avoid accountability demonstrate a troubling lack of moral character. I read those words 3 times at my kitchen table. The court had validated everything. Winning the judgment was one thing, collecting was another. David initiated collection proceedings, wage garnishment, liens, asset seizure. Within a month, he'd placed a lien on Jennifer and Derek's house. Jennifer called, hysterical. You're taking our house, making us homeless. I'm collecting a debt you owe. If you'd returned the money when I asked, this wouldn't be necessary. Derek called 2 weeks later, his voice hollow. We're selling. We can't afford the house anyway, and with the lien, we can't refinance. We're moving in with my parents temporarily. This has destroyed us financially, and I'm filing for divorce. I can't be with someone who would do what she did. The house sold quickly. After the mortgage and lien, I got my $53,000 back in full. But the consequences didn't stop there. Patricia called. The prosecutor is filing criminal charges. Elder abuse and theft. If convicted, she's looking at probation and a criminal record. Jennifer's employer placed her on administrative leave pending the outcome. Without her income, she and Derek couldn't afford even temporary rent. In December, Jennifer's attorney negotiated a plea deal. Guilty to criminal conversion, 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory financial counseling, and a permanent criminal record. At the plea hearing, Jennifer admitted her guilt in a barely audible voice. When it was over, she glanced back at me once. I couldn't read her expression. I felt nothing. Outside, reporters were waiting. Someone had tipped them off. A reporter shoved a microphone at Jennifer. Do you have anything to say to your mother? Jennifer's face crumpled. She fled to her car. The story ran that evening. Local woman pleads guilty to stealing from elderly mother. It included her photo, name, employer. By morning, regional outlets had picked it up. Jennifer's pharmaceutical sales career was over. No company would hire someone with her record. David called to congratulate me. Complete victory, Helen. You got your money. She has a criminal record. Everyone knows what she did. You won. Had I won? I had my money, my vindication, my dignity, but I'd lost my daughter. 6 months later, my life had transformed completely. The $53,000 sat securely in a new account with measures Jennifer couldn't breach. I'd updated my will, removing her as beneficiary and leaving everything to charities and Kaylee through a trust she couldn't access until age 30. But the real change was internal. I'd discovered I was stronger, braver, more resilient than I'd known. That discovery opened doors. Margaret and I started traveling. Weekend getaways, then a 2-week New England tour. We stayed in bed and breakfasts, ate without checking prices, bought souvenirs without guilt. I could afford it now. I volunteered more seriously, leading a reading group at the library, helping with costumes at the local theater. I made new friends who knew nothing about Jennifer, who simply enjoyed my company. Susan introduced me to her brother-in-law, Howard, a widower with kind eyes and dry humor. We started having coffee, then dinners. It felt like genuine companionship. When I told him about Jennifer, he simply said, "Good for you for standing up for yourself. No judgment, no pressure to reconcile, just respect." My life had expanded. Without Jennifer's drama, I had space for joy. Meanwhile, Jennifer's life had imploded. Through the grapevine, I heard updates. Her divorce finalized in March. Derek got primary custody of Kaylee and moved to Michigan for a new job. Kaylee transferred schools there, working part-time, thriving away from her mother. Jennifer was working as a cashier at a big box store, the only job available with her record. From 6 figures to minimum wage. She'd moved into a studio apartment in a rough neighborhood, all she could afford. Linda and Robert had cut her off after the plea deal, ashamed of the scandal. Kaylee had blocked her number. Former friends avoided her. Her church suggested she find another congregation. She'd deleted all social media after being flooded with condemnation. She'd lost everything. One Sunday, I was gardening when a beaten sedan parked across the street. Jennifer. She approached slowly, looking gaunt and years older. "Hi, Mom. I wanted to see if you were okay." "I'm fine. I've been in therapy. I wanted to make amends. I stole from you, manipulated you, betrayed you. I destroyed my own life, but I gave you the ammunition. I understand that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I understand what I took, not just money, but your security and trust." And we stood in silence. I felt nothing. No maternal love, no urge to comfort her. Just cool observation of a stranger who'd once been my daughter. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "But we have nothing else to say." She nodded, tears falling. "I hope you're happy, Mom." She drove away. I stood in my blooming garden and felt at peace. She was gone. The threat was gone. I was free. Looking back now, I've learned that family doesn't excuse betrayal. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself and even for the person who wronged you is to enforce consequences. I lost my daughter, but I found myself. I chose dignity over false peace. I chose justice over comfort. If someone you trusted betrayed you like this, took your security, your savings, your peace of mind, what would you do? Would you fight back or would you let them win? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story.